What's up, everybody? Welcome to June. It's not welcome to a new episode of Remember the Game, but welcome to June. It's June, it's summer, life is good. I've made the decision to start holding back one Remember the Game episode per month, and I'm going to try to do it on the first Wednesday of every new page on the calendar, because the fact is I'm struggling to play through a game a week for this show, and I don't want the quality of Remember the Game to get even worse than it already is. Now, we have a big month of June lined up. Next week will be Remember the Game 299, and we're talking Twisted Metal Black for the PS2, which is a game I have wanted to cover since the early days of Remember the Game. And then it's the big number 300 on June 19th. And while I know some people will argue it isn't retro yet, Mark McHugh and I will be reviewing The Last of Us, one of my absolute favorite games of all time. But this week, it's a freebie out of our Patreon archives. We're going to go to expansion pass number 166, and I'm counting down what I believe to be the 10 greatest console launch games in history. A big launch title is critical for the success of a console, and I had a blast counting down what I think are the GOATs. This episode originally went live for Patreons back on June 21st of 2023. If you enjoy this episode and you want more of them, subscriptions start at just $3 a month at patreon.com/rememberthegame. And I'm going to start offering some more freebies from over there every once in a while here on Remember the Game feed as well. If you don't know, you can actually sign up for Patreon for free and see how it works, listen to previews of episodes, all that kind of stuff. And don't forget, every episode available over on Patreon is 100% ad-free. My Final Fantasy VII Rebirth review and spoiler cast will be going live this week. Thanks for listening to Remember the Game. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you enjoyed this free episode of Expansion Pass. Let's go. I fucking love that song. I love it. If you don't know, that is from Battletoads and Battle Maniacs. One of my favorite songs in any video game ever. Not a launch title. That is not a spoiler for the list today. I'm just super stoked after the Nintendo Direct and everything. I'm feeling fucking hot and horny, and I wanted to just have some energetic music to start the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 166th edition of Remember the Game Expansion Pass. It is one of our Patreon-exclusive weekly podcasts here at Remember the Game Industries. My name is Adam Blank, and if you're hearing this, you're watching this, you're checking this out live on a stream, hey, hopefully you're as fucking excited about the Nintendo Direct as I am, and two, it means you support us on the old Patreon box, and if that is the case, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it more than you know, especially because your money gives me money to buy the games that I'm all excited about right now. But anyway, that's tomorrow. Tomorrow's Game Patch. We'll get into covering the Nintendo Direct then. I'm pretty excited about it, but we'll get there then. This week for Expansion Pass, we're talking launch games. This is something that's been kicked around for some time now in the old topic bingo ball bouncer thing of Expansion Pass. Yeah, a good launch title can set a console up for success, and there have been some fucking bangers over the years. So that's what we're going to talk about. And I wasn't sure if I was just going to talk about launch titles as a whole, if I was going to go through various systems launch libraries, if I was going to count them down into a top 10, or what I was going to do. I decided to do a top 10 for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're my favorite episodes. I love ranking episodes. I think everything in the world should be ranked, including launch titles. And I ranked them not only based on how much I personally like them. There's actually two launch games on here that I haven't played. I think two. But anyways, I ranked them not only based on how much I personally like them, but how effective I thought they were as a launch title to showcase the hardware, to help sell consoles, all that kind of stuff. It turned out to actually be a really fun ranking to work my way through. So I've got my top 10. Obviously, I'm going to read some of your comments as well. And we'll get to all that in just a minute because, as you know, part of your Patreon perks is a peek past the podcast. So if you want to line up 3 days early, buy the first new console on the shelf, and then take it home and realize you forgot a fucking memory card, I will tell you what's been going on around here over the last 7 days. And this is a pretty quick peek. I don't really have anything to show you. I'm taking the first week of July off, so quick heads up to all of our Patreons. The Patreon page is going to be packed. A packed Patreon page, patrons. It's going to be cluttered out the ass over the next week or so because I've got to do... So it's as I'm recording this, it's June 21st. So between today and June 30th, and I can't work on June 30th because I'm flying to Ottawa. So between today and basically June 29th. I need to do this episode, a game patch, 2 Remember the Games, 2 expansion passes outside of this one, a Purple Monkey dishwasher. I need to get the Patreon poll for June, which will be going live today, Thursday, June 22nd, when you hear that. Not today that I'm recording this, today you're hearing it. That'll be the PS1 edition. Lots of podcasts to get done. So game patch this week really isn't super busy, but Nintendo's kind of pulled it out of the fire, so that's fucking awesome. I may skip game patch not next week or the week after. I might skip it. Anyway, we'll figure that out in July. We'll see how much news there is in July. I was looking at the backlog from hell this morning, and I have 9 sponsored episodes left now that Metal Gear Solid is done. We're knocking F-Zero off next week, which will take it to 8. Metroid Prime should be episode 256, assuming I get it done in time. So that'll take it down to 7. And Space Harrier for the Genesis will be sometime in July. 100% it will be. And that'll be all 4 of the generous motherfuckers that donated $1,000 each to my 24-hour charity stream last year to the Stollery Children's Hospital. That'll be all 4 of their episodes. Captain N with Dark Cloud was the first one. F-Zero will be the second one. Metroid Prime will be the third. And then Space Harrier will wrap up that count. So that'll bring us down to whatever I'm at then. 6, which is fucking exciting. Turok Dinosaur Hunter won last month's Patreon poll. I'm going to be picking up a copy of that this weekend and starting that right away. I'm definitely going to stream some of those games too. I didn't stream Metal Gear Solid 3. I want everyone to know too, like, I don't not stream a game you like because I'm trying to fuck with you or anything. It's if I think it's going to make a good stream. Metal Gear Solid 3, I wasn't sure it would make a good stream to begin with. And then when I saw how many cutscenes were in it, like, I think that would have been a horrible stream, to be honest with you. So I'm glad I didn't stream that one. Dark Cloud I streamed some of. It just got kind of repetitive. Probably going to stream Metroid Prime. Definitely going to stream some Turok Dinosaur Hunter. I don't need to play any more F-Zero, so I'm not going to stream that one. May or may not stream some Space Harrier. I have no idea what Space Harrier is, but I'm looking forward to it. So lots of streams coming up. I'm definitely going to be active on Twitch over the rest of the summer at least, which is fucking awesome. Feeling good. Feeling good about where the show is headed, baby. And then the only other thing I have to tell you is last week I brought up the idea of doing like a monthly State of the Podcast address where it's just a stream to the patrons of all tier levels where we just talk and it's a chance if you want to chat with me or whatever. I think I am going to introduce that next month. I haven't figured out when yet. I've got to figure out the logistics of when that'll work for the most people because we have listeners around this soul flat. It's not a rock. It's a flat sheet of paper planet. I'm kidding. I'm not a flat earther, but we have listeners all around the world. And so I can't possibly line up a stream that'll work with everybody's time, but I'm going to do my best to do that. And then something I've been kicking around, and I'm interested to know if you're interested in this. I would like to add a little bit more value. Sorry, just moving around in my chair here. I'd like to offer a little bit more value at the senior executive vice president level, which I hate to talk about the numbers, but that is the $10 and up level. And I feel like y'all get access. You guys get to watch these podcasts recorded live. You get the video versions and that kind of stuff. But I've been thinking about adding a little bit more value to that tier as like a thank you to everybody that is, being so generous with your dollary dues. So one thing I've been thinking about is I've got my personal schedule down to a pretty good system where, assuming I don't have any errands to run in the afternoon, like I got a doctor appointment, a dentist appointment, I got to go to the vet or fucking whatever. If I'm just home in the afternoon, a lot of afternoons, that's when I sneak in my Prime gaming sessions. And it's not like shit I don't, it's stuff that like, it's not like Tetris 99 or Mario Kart. That's when I'm working on the backlog and not just old stuff. Like that's what I've been playing a lot of Tears of the Kingdom lately. And that's when I'll be playing probably Spider-Man 2 and Starfield and stuff like that. So what I've been thinking about doing is maybe adding 2 or 3 streams a week. The schedule will be subject to change based on my personal avails. But I'm thinking about adding a couple of streams a week at the senior executive vice president level. That'll be available in the afternoon, and I'll record them and upload the videos so you can go back and watch them if you want. And they'll just be basically like, it may be old games, it may be modern games, but they'll be more intimate, not sexually, although we'll see. But just more intimate streams where I can chat with all of you. You can see me playing some of the new games like a Tears of the Kingdom that I don't want to stream on Twitch because I don't want everybody coming in and spoiling it for me and stuff. So that's something I'm kicking around. And if I decide to pull the trigger on that, which I'm leaning toward doing, otherwise I would have mentioned it. That's something I'll roll out in July as well. But I'll post more about that because I am taking that first week of July off. So it'll be something that would happen when I get back after my holiday. So I'll post about that in the coming days. I'm still figuring out the logistics of it, but that is something I would like to offer at the senior exec VP level. So anyway, yeah. So So potentially some new perks on Patreon, some hangouts and some privatized modern gaming streams where you can just come by and hang out with me during the day while you're at work or whatever. But anyway, that's for then. This is now. Let's talk launch titles. Maybe I'll stream a launch title when the next Nintendo system comes out. Let's talk launch titles. That's the subject of this episode. That is why you're here. I am going to cue up some music. Again, I'm fired up today. I want fire up music. And when that music stops, I will count down what I consider to be the 10 best launch titles in gaming history. Enjoy the podcast, everybody. Let's go. I think that's my favorite song in gaming history. I think that is my single favorite track in the history of video games. It's either that or the Runaway 5 theme from Earthbound that I don't have queued up on my computer to play for you. If you don't know what that is from Mega Man X Spark Mandrill Stage. Probably my favorite song from my favorite soundtrack of one of my favorite games ever. All kinds of favorites. I've been kicking tires on a Mega Man tattoo lately. I don't know. Whenever I come up with a new idea for a tattoo, I give it a couple of months. I'm like, all right, because it's not. Here's a piece of life advice to any of you: you don't make tattoos an impulse decision. I have a Blink-182 tattoo that I don't dislike. I like it, but that was an impulse decision. I don't think I would have gotten that. But my turtle sleeve, I love. I have my number 17 on my arm. I love it. I really love Mega Man. I'm thinking about Anyway, that's for then. This is now. Let's talk top 10 gaming tattoos. No, we're talking top 10 launch titles. And I want to get a couple of quick notes out of the way, as I always do. This is like the terms and conditions, if you will, before we get into the rankings. We're only talking launch titles in North America. I did a lot of homework for this episode, and I was torn on how to tackle this. I thought about working through just the launch lineups of every console and everything, but the lists online are kind of all over the place. Some of them are pretty consistent, like Super Nintendo. It's like there was 5 games in North America, blah, blah, blah. Other ones, it's like there's 16 games, 17 games, 15 games, 3 games, 9 games. It was kind of all over the map. So I didn't want to just break down all of them. And there's also a ton of games in those launch libraries that I just have nothing to say about. So I decided not to break down every single one. And again, I decided to stick primarily to North America launch titles just for consistency's sake. So my apologies to you folks in the city of Great Britain, or of course, the poor people in Rand McNally, where you have to run away from hamburgers. I also quickly want to explain what a launch title is. And I'm not mocking any of you, but I think some of you wrote in with like games that had a big launch. And what I mean by a launch title is a game that was available the day a console released. So we all remember the Sega Dreamcast released on 9/9/99, September 9th, 1999. The only launch titles for the Sega Dreamcast are the games that were available on September 9th, 1999. So that is what I mean when I say a launch title. It's a game that came out the day that console hit the shelves. All right? So those are your rules. So I'm going to do a top 10. And like I said in the intro, this is not my personal top 10, but the 10 games I think were the best overall launch titles. Not only in the sense of how good they were and how much I like them, but in the sense of the impact they had on the console sales, getting people talking, showing off what the hardware could do, as a good launch title should do. All right? And a final note, yes, this is an incredibly Nintendo heavy list, but do your homework. I am a Nintendo fanboy. I've never hidden that fact. Go online. I implore you. If you think I said too much, you think I was too Nintendo heavy on this episode, go and look up the lists of the launch titles for every console ever released. Outside of Nintendo, it is it's ugly. Nintendo, you can like or dislike what they do, but they are the kings and queens of the launch title formula. They by far, by a mile. So just know that. PlayStation's launch titles, by and large, not great. Not awful, not great. Xbox, not really all that good either, but there is one very big one that shows up pretty high on this list. Most of you probably know what it is. Sega with the Dreamcast. I was shocked at how poor the Sega Genesis launch titles were. But the Sega Dreamcast fucking crushed it. So if you're a Dreamcast fan, you're going to get some love on this episode. Also, one last final note. I'm not familiar with stuff pre-NES, so I just went with the NES and up for ranking launch titles. All right. I have a few honorable mentions here that were on my short list but didn't manage to crack the top 10. I'd like to shout out both Luigi's Mansion and Star Wars Rogue Leader Rogue Squadron 2 for the Nintendo GameCube. Mac Daddy ×4 wrote in and said, Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2 Rogue Leader for the Cube. That game really made you feel like Luke Skywalker and Wedge Antilles. I'm not sure who that is. I've only seen the movies once. Flying around the galaxy. GameCube had a great launch library, but this was the highlight for me. Now, I wanted to say, I have never played Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2. I actually have that higher on my list than Luigi's Mansion. Because I remember going to a Zellers. Yeah, I don't even know how many of you remember Zellers. I remember going to a Zellers when the GameCube came out and going to the display kiosk and playing Star Wars Rogue Squadron, and I had no fucking idea I'd never seen a Star Wars at that point, so I had no idea what the fuck was going on, but I was blown away just how cool it looked and how it felt and how it played. I'd really like to play that game at some point. So I had that one on my short list. That was actually number 11. That one just missed the cut. Because to me, that one showed off what the Cube could do more than Luigi's Mansion. And I love Luigi's Mansion. Thermopolis wrote in and said, I'm a bit of an odd duck, but I'm going to go with Luigi's Mansion. This was the first game to really establish Luigi's personality, and I've always been a big Luigi fan. So the reason I think Luigi's Mansion is a great game. But I'll tell you right now, I personally didn't get a GameCube when it launched because there was no Mario game. I'll admit it. And I think it was a bold strategy, Cotton. We'll see if it pays off. There was a bold strategy by Nintendo to launch the GameCube with Luigi's Mansion instead of a classic Mario game. And if you look at the GameCube sales numbers, it wasn't like an abysmal failure, but it didn't set the world on fire. I think looking back, the GameCube is one of the most underrated systems ever. I have a GameCube. I have a GameCube collection. I love that system. But I think Luigi's Mansion was a bit of a misstep, to be honest with you. Not that it's a bad game, but it just didn't have the sex appeal that a new Mario game did, especially going up against stuff like the PS2 and Xbox and everything. So, fair enough to you, Thermopolis, but I did not put Luigi's Mansion on my list. We've had some great partners over the years here at Remember the Game, but I don't know if any of them have hit home for me quite like Hometown Hero does. No pun intended. Don't start. It's a transparent, honest cannabis company that helps people and gives back to those that have served their country at the same time. I mean, come on. As soon as I read about these guys, I knew I wanted to work with them. Hometown Hero is a cannabis company out of Austin, Texas, and they were founded back in 2015 by a U.S. veteran. They have two goals: create premium hemp products that can help everyone, and to support veterans by donating a portion of those profits to organizations set up to take care of those who have served. Hometown Hero products are of the highest quality, and everything they offer is made right there in the U.S. of A. Gummies, caramels, chocolates, drink mix. There's something for everyone. And what's more, their hemp is grown locally in Texas, which is something they should and do take a lot of pride in. And they offer certificates of analysis for everything they sell because they want to be clear that their products are as advertised, both in terms of potency and ingredients. No contaminants, you get what you pay for. Just how they conduct business is enough to get my good eyes' attention. But when you circle back to the fact that the company was founded by a veteran and they put such heavy emphasis on supporting veterans, this isn't just lip service. I'm not reading a script I was given here. I'm proud to have Hometown Hero associated with Remember the Game. Reclaim your evening. Visit hometownhero.com and use code RTG to take 20% off your first purchase. That's hometownhero.com, code RTG for 20% off your first purchase. This is an ad by BetterHelp. A band once said, "Work sucks, I know." And I think most people agree with them. Workplace stress is now one of the top causes of declining mental health, with 61% of the global workforce experiencing higher than normal levels of stress from their jobs. And while walking away from your job might not be an option, taking a little time every day to focus on yourself and your mental health can make a huge difference. I know in the summer I try to get outside every day, get a little bit of sun, and just enjoy the outdoors. It really helps. At least until my allergies attack, and then it's ugly. It's important to take steps to combat work stress, and therapy can be a huge one. It's not just for overcoming trauma. Therapy can help you define work goals, set some work boundaries, develop coping skills. It's like a cheat code for life. And if you're thinking, man, I'm too busy for therapy, well, Look into BetterHelp. They make therapy as convenient as possible. You can meet with one of their over 30,000 therapists online and on your schedule, just like over 5 million people around the world already have done. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. I quickly like to shout out Altered Beast because I think that's the best game in the Sega Genesis launch library that I've played at least. I love Altered Beast. Wasn't going to make my top 10. Nakamurda said, not the best overall, but one of the best launch titles to flex on some new hardware muscle was Condemned for Xbox 360. The lighting, or lack thereof, and support of surround sound made it one of the first console games where I felt fully immersed in the environment. Huge jump from the Xbox and the PS2. Fair enough. I never actually played Condemned. It does look dope, but I don't have anything to add to that. But I wanted to give it some love, so fair enough. Twilight Princess on the Wii was an honorable mention for me because I did buy a Wii to play Twilight Princess. I never finished Twilight Princess because I hated having to use the Wiimote to play it. I will eventually play it. I have the GameCube version here. Thank you, Stupid Monkey. He let me it. I got to play it. But I actually ended up playing another Wii game at launch a lot more, which you're going to hear on this list. So Twilight Princess didn't make my list. Super Mario 64 DS for the Nintendo DS, I think, is an interesting concept. Cal C wrote in and said, Super Mario 64 on the DS would have to be mine. Growing up, we had our uncle's old Nintendo 64. We loved it. Being able to play it in my pocket was a feeling like no other. I still get that buzz when I load up games on my Switch. I also love playing games in my pocket. I didn't put it on the list, but I would hear that argument that Mario 64 on the DS. Was that a launch title for the DS? I think it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was. I didn't put it on my list, but fair enough. And then the last honorable mention I have, some of you can mock me for this. So Roto Baggins wrote in and said Snake for the Nokia 3310 was an absolute banger, and it had a ton of likes. And I also like Snake, the mobile game, so I thought I'd give it a shout out. It did not make my top 10, but I quickly want to shout out Brick Breaker on the BlackBerry. I know I'm dating myself. I don't know how many of you had a BlackBerry back in the day, but I played it's basically just Alleyway, but I played the ever-loving fuck out of Brick Breaker on my BlackBerry with the old tracking ball. Oh my God, I loved Brick Breaker. That fucking game. They just can't get the spices right today. I love it. Anyway, those are my honorable mentions. It's time to count them down. We're going to do the top 10. I actually went to the work to get the music for all 10 of these games as one of my traditional rankings episodes would have, so I can queue them all up and count them down and talk through it. Let's get into this thing. The number 10 greatest launch title in the history of gaming, in my opinion, is... Can you place it? Do you know what that game is? Give you a hint, it's the newest game on the list. PlayStation 5. Astro's Playroom. I never played it. This is one of the 2 games on the list that I have not played. But I felt I had to put it on the list when I was working through the launch titles because every single person I've talked to that has played Astro's Playroom fucking loved it. And in an era where we don't get... your Super Mario Bros, your Super Mario Worlds, your Sonic your Hedgehogs, your whatever the fuck, Sonic your Hedgehogs. Your pack-in cartridge. And I know, by the way, Sonic didn't launch with the Genesis. It came out like 2 years after the Genesis, in North America at least. So that's why I didn't make the list. Otherwise it would have. But in an era where we don't get the pack-in game much anymore, Astro's Playroom was free with every PS5. And apparently it's not only an incredible showcase for what the DualSense... Is it DualSense or DualShock? DualSense controller can do on the PS5. It's a massive, heavy-duty blast of nostalgia for longtime PlayStation fans. I haven't yet to see a bad review of Astro's Playroom, and I do really want to play it. I just keep getting busy, and I haven't got around to it. But I couldn't put it higher than 10th because I hadn't played it, and I don't really think it sold a lot of consoles. I think people were buying PS5s for PS5s. And then Astro's Playroom just happened to be there. But the way it shows off the new controller, the way it pays homage to the history of PlayStation and just all the great reviews, plus the fact that it was free, I felt it had to be included on the list. So number 10 on my list, the most modern game on the list, is Astro's Playroom. Now, I'm just looking at my list here. I think number 9 Yeah. Number 9 is the only other game. So remember I said there were 2 games on the list I haven't played? Maybe that's why they came in at 10 and 9, because I have no personal experience with them. But I know of their legacies. I know of their impact. And I just felt obligated to make them both make the cut. If number 10 was Astro's Playroom, number 9 is another one that not only have I never played, I'm almost certainly never going to play. But some of you wrote in about it. Let's fire up the old tunes here. Do you know it? Do you know what it is? Give you a hint. It's an arcade port. Came out in 1999. Came out on the Sega Dreamcast. It's a genre that I don't really understand. It's Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur for the Sega Dreamcast. Triple wrote in and said, I'm going to take the time and shout out Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast. I was huge into the arcade scene with Third Strike and thought a console could not compete with the arcade. Bought a Dreamcast day one and was instantly hooked. This was the start of console fighting game appreciation for me personally. Great game that holds up well today. Hopes that one day Adam will traverse the Weapon Master mode on Soul Calibur 1 or 2. One day. Couple of things. Thank you for writing in, Triple. Y'all know, I've already said it, I never played this. I don't know this game, but I'm fully aware. I see the recommendations from people all the time. You should play Soul Calibur. I will, you know what? I'm going to put my cards on the table. If I am going to play another fighting game for the podcast, it will probably be Soul Calibur. Because it just, something about it intrigues me. I love the Dreamcast. I have minimal experience with the Dreamcast, but there's a reason the Dreamcast has a Never Forget shirt in the Remember the Game merch store. Of course, it doesn't sell a ton. I just love that. I think that is such a cool concept. I think the Sega Dreamcast is the single most underrated console in the history of gaming. And when I'm reading about all the launch titles, and I see that Soul Calibur, which is a game that everybody fucking loves, is an arcade port that seems universally to be considered a better version of the game than the dude. You got to remember, back in the Super Nintendo days and shit, we would get arcade ports. They were almost always subpar. You know, not awful, but just not as good as the arcade version. Sometimes a little easier, like with Turtles in Time, but not as good. So to read that this game was a launch title for the Dreamcast, it's still considered one of the best fighting games ever. It's an arcade port that upped the game from the arcade port, and that people still fucking love. I had to put it on my list. Man, and here is the biggest thing. I'm not done talking Sega Dreamcast. I'm not, maybe it's bias, but I am a card-carrying member of the Sega Dreamcast fan club. I wish I had bought one back in 1999. That was all the money I had back then, but I wish I had bought one. And I'll put it in writing. If I'm going to play another fighting game for the show, and I'm not saying I'm going to, I'm not saying expect it next week. I don't want to turn it to a turkey myself. Shout out to when he gets that reference. But if I am going to play one, I think it's going to be Soul Calibur. It looks awesome. And I was really impressed looking at it. So, yeah, even if you hadn't written in about it, Triple, I did my list before I read your comments. Soul Calibur made my list. It just seems like it's everything you want a launch title to be. It's going to get butts in the seats. It's going to get people to buy the consoles to play a superior version of an arcade game they already all love. So number 9 on my list is Soul Calibur for the Sega Dreamcast. Number 8. I think this one's going to shock some people, I think. But I want to make sure I make this clear. I'm not just ranking them based on how much I like them, but on how necessary they were, the impact they had, all of that. I'm going to explain in a minute. I'll see if you can get it from the music. I don't know if you'll be able to place this one or not. Number 8 on my list of the top 10 greatest launch games of all time. It's It's my precious, my one and only Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. I know what some of you are thinking. In what fucking world is Super Mario World the 8th best launch title of all time? A lot of you wrote in about it. Captain Black Silver said, I'm looking at the launch lineup for the SNES, and I feel like the entire lineup belongs on this list. F-Zero, Gradius 3, Pilot Wing, SimCity, and Super Mario World. Wow, the SNES is the GOAT for a reason. Agreed. That's a fucking I would argue, with the exception of the Dreamcast, the Super Nintendo had the best launch library of all time. And you can come at me if you want to. I would say with the exception of maybe and I don't know. I'd have to play more of those Dreamcast games. But to me, they're the top 2 launch libraries of all time. And obviously this was going to make my list. But when I was ranking them, again, if I was just ranking them based on my favorites, this would be number 1. But when I sat down and looked at it, I'm like, if you weren't around in the 80s, if you didn't grow up during the NES mania, particularly the later half of the NES when we had Mario 3 and shit like that, you can't understand how big the NES was. And I would certainly argue Nintendo is bigger now. You know, obviously the Switch is a bigger selling console than the NES was. But if you grew up in the 80s, it was fucking religion. The NES was everywhere. And when they announced the Super Nintendo, they didn't need Mario World. It was exciting that we got Mario World, and I think Mario World is fucking great. But if they had announced the Super Nintendo with the other 4 games, F-Zero, Gradius 3, Pilot Wings, and SimCity, it still would have sold through the roof. It still would have fucking sold like gangbusters. And here, you know, it's a great game. I think Mario World is fire, and I think people did buy a Super Nintendo to play Super Mario World. That was why I wanted it when I was a kid, was to play Super Mario World. I still think the Super Nintendo would have sold like gangbusters either way. And I think if they had announced, hey, we have Super Mario World, it's coming in 6 months or something, wouldn't have mattered. The Super Nintendo would have sold out all over the place. It was that big. So that's why I decided to put it a little bit down the list. I do think it's fucking awesome, but I don't think it really revolutionized anything. I think it's Super Mario Brothers 3 on steroids. I think it's the best Mario game ever. I think it's awesome, but I don't think it changed the game. I don't think it convinced people they needed a Super Nintendo right away. Does that make sense? When I finished my rankings list, I looked at this and I'm like, are people going to lose their shit that I ranked Mario World at number 8? But I think when you hear what I have to say about the 7 games ahead of it, like I'm looking at the list right now, and I can sit here and make a definitive great argument that all 7 of these games had a bigger impact on their console's future than Super Mario World did at launch. So, while I love it, I'm going to slot it in at number 8 and hope that it forgives me. It'll forgive me because I'll play it 100 more times in my life. So it'll be fine. So with that said, that leaves 7 games that I think had a bigger impact on their console's lifespan and on their console's launch than Super Mario World. So let's keep the ball rolling. Number 7 on my list of my 10. I gotta stop saying my favorite. Number 7 on what I consider to be the 10 best launch titles of all time. Fucking soundtracks for both of these games fucking slap. Do you know what that one is? Blue Hedgehog, 1999. It's going on an adventure. It's Sonic Adventure for the Sega Dreamcast. And again, I know some of you are going to be like, the fuck, you have Sonic Adventure ahead of Super Mario World. I do not think Sonic Adventure is a better game than Super Mario World. But I think Sonic Adventure was critical. And let me explain why. And this is the same reason I had Soul Calibur on the list. I swear on Molly's head, I am not trying to troll or fuck with you Saturnians, all right? I'm not. I think even the most diehard ride-or-die Saturnian would admit Sega fucked up. Not that the Saturn was bad, but that they had not only dropped the ball, but they kind of kicked it a couple of times after the Sega Genesis with the CD, the 32X, the Sega Saturn, and it just... They were in a bad place, and a lot of gamers were kind of losing faith in Sega at that point, and they clearly put all their chips into the middle of the table with the Sega Dreamcast, and it shows with their launch lineup. They fucking came out swinging. They got Soul Calibur. They got their fucking arcade game and made it even better. and it added on their console. And they had Sonic Adventure. And I'll tell you right now, as somebody in 1999 that had maybe played 5 hours of Sonic the Hedgehog in my entire life, I would see the ads for Sonic Adventure and try to figure out how I could afford to buy a Sega Dreamcast. And I couldn't. I couldn't afford one. But I wanted one. And it was because of Sonic Adventure. To this day, I still think Sonic Adventure is the best 3D Sonic game ever. At least of the ones that I have played. I'm a big fan of that game, and I think that was Sega's last kick at the can. And I don't think the Dreamcast lost that console generation because of the games. They lost it because of several other decisions, the lack of the DVD player, combined with the PS2's crazy success, combined with the obviously incredibly easy to pirate games, which didn't do them any favors at all either. But I think they came out of the gate swinging, and I have nothing but respect and admiration for Sonic Adventure. I think Sega... for my money, Sonic Adventure is Sega's Mario 64. It was seeing Sonic in 3D, this big, bright, colorful game with this awesome soundtrack. Some of you wrote in about it. Izzy number 8 says Sonic Adventure, the game that defined modern Sonic for better or worse. The box art is easily one of my favorites. I always loved how this game's clean, natural aesthetic contrasted with the sequel, which was more gritty and industrial. Also, that soundtrack slaps hard. The soundtrack fucking does slap hard. I agree. And Impressive Beans said, unpopular opinion, Sonic Adventure. Great launch title for a system that deserved more than it got. I agree with every fucking word you just said, with the possible exception of it being an unpopular opinion, because I share it and I'm popular. Number 7 on my list, Sonic Adventure. That's your last Dreamcast game, but the Dreamcast deserved a better fate. And in fact, the Dreamcast is the only game on this the only console on this list with 2 games on it. So that should show you I have nothing but respect for that console. So number 7, Sonic Adventure. Number 6, I feel like this one might piss a couple of people off, but let me explain why I put it where it was, and then hopefully you'll understand. Number 6 on the 10 greatest launch titles of all time. Your precious, precious Super Mario 64. And listen, this honestly, this was where the list got hard. 10, 9, 8, 7, I kind of felt definitively that's where those games belonged. This one was hard because from an influence perspective, Mario 64 is probably one of the more influential games ever made. And I know that I used to shit on it. I've come to peace with it as long as I don't have to play with a 64 controller. I just look at it and it's not that it didn't sell consoles, but I still think Nintendo was in a great spot after the Super Nintendo. I think, PlayStation hadn't quite taken over the gaming market. They do over the generation, but they hadn't yet. And the fact that it had 4 controller ports, the only other game that the Nintendo 64 launched with was Pilot Wing 64. But we knew Mario Kart 64 was coming. We knew Ocarina of Time was coming. If Mario 64 had been 6 months later, I don't think the 64 would have been in any trouble. And that's why I rank Super Mario World and Mario 64 a little bit lower. I have respect for both those games. I love one. I like the other one. I think Mario 64 did change the script a little bit and help figure out, define what a 3D platformer was. But from a launch title perspective, I don't think Nintendo needed it. It's great that they had it. I don't think they needed it yet. Nintendo was doing just fine at that point, and I think they would have been just fine without it. So, does that make sense? I hope that does make sense. I don't want a bunch of angry emails. This one was harder. Dude, when I look at the next 5 games on this list, I'm like, that one probably saved a console. That one saved a company. That one saved a console, maybe a company. That one saved one, and that one, there you go. Okay, so I'm looking at the list. To me, the next 5 games on this list all saved companies, or consoles, if not companies. I don't think Mario 64 did that. I think Mario 64 continued the Nintendo momentum. I don't think it saved Nintendo. And when you hear the rest of the list, I hope you'll understand why I had to slot it in just a little bit lower. Amanda Hugginkiss wrote in and said, I have to go with Super Mario 64. I know the change to 3D was weird to some, especially with that weird controller, but seeing Mario and Peach's Castle in 3D felt life-changing. Honorable mention to Wii Sports. I know it's not a deep game and on an ever-worse console, but everyone and their mama played Wii Sports, and it's got to be in that discussion. Yeah, Wii Sports is... Spoiler, Wii Sports is in the next 5 games. Yeah, so number 6... Mario 64. And I hate to me, like, it was like, I think it's bigger and better and more influential than the 4 below it. I don't think it changed gaming and saved systems and companies like the 5 in front of it. So it kind of slots in all by itself in like a B tier. The 4 below it were C tier. These next 5 games are A tier. Yeah. And I would argue that number 1 on this list is S tier. But yeah, let's go with that. Okay, so that was the C tier. Mario 64 sits alone in the B tier. Let's move up to the A tier. We got a few games there. Number 5 on my list of the 10 biggest launch titles of all time. See? And here's the thing. If you're upset that Mario 64 is ranked at 6th, I ask you, send me a DM, explain to me why one of these 5 games isn't as big as Mario 64 was for the platform. Number 5 on my list is Tetris for the Game Boy. Truth be told, when I originally finished my list, I had Tetris written into number 1. And then the only reason I dropped it down was because one of the games is the S tier game. One of them saved a company, and the other 2 are just launch titles on consoles that sold more than the Game Boy. That's the only reason I put them there. But I would listen to an argument that Tetris should be number 1. And this again goes back to the NES thing. If you weren't around at the launch of the Game Boy, you don't get how big this was. This was a cultural phenomenon. This was fucking huge. Tetris saved the Game Boy before it even launched. I think without the Tetris, I think the Game Boy would have been okay. It had Super Mario Land. People loved Nintendo at that point. People would have bought it to play Nintendo on the go. But Tetris took the Game Boy from, hey, I could play Mario in the car when my parents are driving me around or whatever, to business people, adults, any people that don't play video games. My mom and dad didn't play games. They could play Tetris. Anyone could play Tetris. Everybody did. People bought Game Boys just to play Tetris. And it came packaged with a lot of Game Boys. It was fucking insane. For me, packaging Tetris with the Game Boy is one of the most important decisions in the history of this industry. It can't be understated how big of a deal Tetris was for the Game Boy. Ender Soul wrote in and said, I'm going to give it up to a well-known puzzle game that launched alongside the Game Boy in North America in '89 called Tetris. It was the best because not only was it Tetris, but you could take it anywhere as long as you had batteries. Yeah, and everyone played it. Don't Win Friends with Salad said the Game Boy Tetris is the perfect handheld game. Banger soundtrack. I've said it many times. I'm biased. I think Tetris is the best video game ever made. Not my favorite, but it's close. But I think Tetris is the perfect video game. Anyone can pick it up and learn how to play it in seconds. I think it is literally the perfect video game. And to put it on a portable thing that we hadn't seen back then. You got to remember, for our younger listeners, dude, in 1989, I'm holding up my iPhone, making sure there's no messages on the screen. These smartphones didn't exist. The Switch didn't exist. You couldn't play games on the go except for those crappy little LCD screen LGN ones that were terrible. The Game Boy changed the fucking industry. And Tetris played such a huge role in it. I really wanted to put it higher. The only reason it's not is because I think, yeah, the games, I'll explain why. I'll explain as we get to the top 4. But yeah, number 5 and the first of the 4 games on the A tier of my list of best launch titles is Tetris for the Game Boy. God, I love that game so much. I love Tetris. Number 4. This one, I don't know if this will be controversial or not. I think when I explain my logic, I think I salvage it, but maybe it'll ruffle some feathers. We'll find out. Number 4 on my list of what I consider to be the 10 best launch titles of all time. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Nintendo Switch, and I think this is the most impressive game as a launch title in the history of gaming. And maybe when the next Nintendo system or something comes out, we'll get there. But to me, this is like, I was ready to buy a Switch day one to begin with. But when I saw Breath of the Wild and saw this giant open world, incredible game that you could play anywhere, we'd never had that. I don't care what you say. You can argue about 3DS games, GBA games, Game Boy games, PSP games, Vita games, Snake on the Nokia. Nothing was anything like Breath of the Wild as far as a handheld game went when the Nintendo Switch launched. It was fucking insane. And the other reason I think Breath of the Wild is so important, and I ranked it so highly, is you need to remember where Nintendo was at this point. Nintendo themselves, executives from Nintendo, I think it was Reggie Fils-Aimé, somebody came out and said if the Switch hadn't succeeded, Nintendo might have been in trouble because the Wii U bombed so hard. I would argue in some ways, the Switch was Nintendo's Sega Dreamcast, in the sense of like, they'd kind of fucked up. They'd kind of burned some people. And they needed to do something to get the fans back. And the Switch was it. And the Switch has gone on to become a top 3 selling system of all time. And it's got an outside crack at number 1. And Breath of the Wild, whether you like it or not, is considered by many to be one of the greatest video games ever made. And to play a game that big and smooth and you can play it anywhere you want, I'd never seen anything like that. Never. So Samuel Mitchell wrote in and said, Breath of the Wild was what got me to get a Switch, and I couldn't stop bothering my fiance to show her how good Nintendo looked handheld. Same thing with Shaylee. Shaylee didn't play a lot of video games. She saw me playing Breath of the Wild on my launch Switch, and then a week later we had to go out and buy a second Switch and a second copy of Breath of the Wild for her. And as someone that only plays Slay the Spire, she's got hundreds of hours into Breath of the Wild and now Tears of the Kingdom. That game just wowed her. And it just, if that was a standard home, hook it up to your TV console game, I don't think I would have put it as high as I did. But between the fact that it kind of bounced Nintendo back after the Wii U, and it was the first big showcase for what this handheld system could do, there's my voice crack for the week. I think Breath of the Wild will go down as, frankly, like, I think it might be the best launch title ever. I think these other 3 games I have in front of it are maybe more important, but I think Breath of the Wild might be the best launch game of all time from a game standpoint. It was just incredible. Trademark 101 said, has to be Breath of the Wild for me. This game alone made the Switch well worth its price with the amount of time I put into it. I've even replayed it from start to finish before the release of Tears of the Kingdom, and I still had a blast. It's my forever comfort game. Yeah, it's just, I'm not even that big a Zelda fan. I've never hit that. I'm a middle of the road, fair weather, B- Zelda fan. Breath of the Wild blew my fucking mind. I couldn't believe it. Even on a hand or on a home console would have been good, but to have it anywhere, I remember taking it on the road as a comedian and just playing it. Fucking unreal. Yeah, Breath of the Wild. I have nothing but respect for what that game did when it launched. So number 4 on my list is Breath of the Wild. Number 3 on my list is probably the game we got the most write-ins about. So if you don't get read in this section, we must have had 20 comments on this game. Number 3 on my list of the 10 greatest launch titles of all time. Wii Sports for the Nintendo Wii. And listen, I'm just going to put my cards on the table. Probably my least favorite game on this list. I haven't even played Soul Calibur and Astro's Playroom, and I would probably put them both ahead of Wii Sports. And I despise the Wii. Many of my listeners know that is the one Nintendo console I can't fucking stand. But I bought a Wii to play Twilight Princess, and then ended up playing more Wii Sports than I did Twilight Princess. It was a pack-in. I would argue the greatest pack-in game of all time. And it just, everybody played it, right? Listen to just a couple of we had so many comments. Blaine the Hoagie Man said, I'd have to say Wii Sports. That game alone helped sell many of the system. Agreed. Daniel Knight said Wii Sports. Not because it's the best game ever made, but because it was the perfect game to showcase what the Wii was. Everyone could pick up that game and get the hang of it within seconds. I genuinely believe that the Wii flops if not for Wii Sports. I agree with that statement, Daniel. And again, we're not just ranking them based on how good the game is. We're not just ranking them on how much I like them, but we're ranking it on how it is as a launch title, how it showcased what the hardware and what the system could do. And I would argue there's never been a launch title that could show off what a system could do more than Wii Sports. Everyone played it. You could play it. Dude, seniors' homes still, like, and I don't, probably more than just seniors' homes. It's just a seniors' home near my house has one. That's why I think of that. Still have Wii set up and still have bowling nights and bowling leagues. And it's just, there's a reason it's the only Wii game that's gotten a review in 253 episodes of Remember the Game. And I promise we'll get to Mario Galaxy at least someday. But it's with the exception of maybe Mario Brothers, I would argue that Wii Sports is maybe the most important game in the history of Nintendo. And it's not the best game. It's easily my least favorite on this list, and some of the honorable mentions are better than this too. But it kind of saved Nintendo. Because like I said, they said like the Super Nintendo sold less than the NES, the 64 sold less than the Super Nintendo, GameCube sold less than the 64, the fucking they were on a downward trajectory. And the Wii brought them back. It was a big fucking deal. Wii Sports is just all time. All time. There was no way. There's a reason so many of you wrote in about it. There was no way I could do this list and not put Wii Sports on it. Even though, again, if it was just my personal favorites, it wouldn't even have been an honorable mention. It's just too important a video game. So number 3 on my list is Wii Sports. And that leaves 2 games. And I'm just asking you now, before I cue up music, do you know what the 2 of them are? I bet you do. I bet you most of you could name them. Maybe in order, maybe not, but probably in order. I think most of you know what I consider to be the 2 biggest launch titles ever are. Well, you think about it. Let's cue up the song. For number 2, the runner-up for me for the 2 most important launch titles of all time. This song is a slow burn, so we're going to give it a second. Yeah, buddy. I don't want to get like flagged. I don't know how much longer I'm allowed to let it play. It makes sense. Makes sense. Number 2 on my list is Halo Combat Evolved for the Xbox. It's the only Xbox game on here. You either know or you don't know. You don't have to like Xbox. You don't have to like Halo. If you weren't around when the Xbox launched, it's just straight up. That system wouldn't have survived. The only way that system survives without Halo is if Bill Gates wants to keep spending money on it. Halo changed gaming. Halo is, in my opinion, maybe the most influential first-person shooter on console ever. It is single-handedly the game that it's the house, or what is it? It's the I'm trying to think of how I want to say it. It built the house, whatever. It's Xbox's house is propped up on Halo. And I understand that Halo 4, Halo 5, Halo started to lose its way. I get that. I think Halo Infinite was hit and miss, but this game changed everything. I bought an Xbox for Halo, and I guarantee you I am far from the only one on this podcast or listening to this podcast right now that says that. People bought Xboxes for Halo. Halo Combat Evolved is precisely what a launch title needs to be. It showed you what the Xbox could do. It made you want to buy it. It was the only place you could get it. People bought consoles to play this game, and it changed a genre. It is so important. It is one of the most important video games ever made. And without it, Xbox probably, it might sound stupid, but I would maybe hear an argument that Halo killed Sega, because without Halo, Xbox probably doesn't do that well when it launches, and it's probably the Dreamcast, the PS2, and the GameCube that survive. There was no way 4 consoles were coming out of there, and I don't think there was anything else on the Xbox people had to play. But fuck, you had to play Halo. I played it once at my friend Chris's house, and went out and bought one the next day. It was insane. I'd never seen anything like it. Halo Combat Evolved is so important, and if it wasn't for the game we all know that's going to come in at number 1, Halo, for my money, would be the best launch title of all time. as far as all those parameters, not just how it plays, but how it sold the system, how it showed off the system, how fun it is today still. Everything about Halo Combat Evolved. This was probably the game we got the second most write-ins about after Wii Sports. Major Tom02 said Halo. Without it, Xbox would probably not have made it. Wooly Bully said Halo. It literally signified a console brand still going to this day. It's dude, to this day, if you look at Xbox, what's the argument? All they have is Halo and Gears. It's Halo. Halo is so, I would argue Halo is maybe not more synonymous with Xbox as Mario is with Nintendo, but it's 1A, 1B. It's PlayStation, and I think it's a good thing for PlayStation. PlayStation does not have one single IP as important to their brand as Halo is to Xbox. And I think that's a testament to how many great brands PlayStation has. What is the face of PlayStation? Is it God of War? Is it The Last of Us? Is it Uncharted? Is it Spider-Man now? You know what I mean? Like, it's like, what is that definitive brand? Xbox has had it for 20 plus years and it hasn't changed. It's Halo. I had to put number 2 as Halo Combat Evolved. And the only reason it's not number 1 is because, yes, I'm a homer, but I don't think anybody can argue with me. It's the most important video game of all time. You all know what it is. This is going to take like 30 seconds. Yeah, I better stop the music before Nintendo comes after me. Of course, it's Super Mario Brothers. I understand if you want to argue against it. I know I'm a Nintendo homer. I know I'm a Mario homer. Dude, that game saved console gaming. It arguably invented the modern platformer. It did everything. Bobby Litton wrote in and said, Super Mario Brothers. Nothing else even comes close. It's iconic, revolutionary, and is one of the main causes of the rebirth, like the phoenix rising from the ashes of the video game industry. Without question. It's when I started working on the list, I'm like, I had Tetris at 1. Then when I got to Super Mario Brothers, I was like, well, that has to slide in at number 1. And then Tetris started to slide its way down. There just is no more important game in history than Super Mario Brothers. I don't care. I'll never move off that point. And I hate it when I do one of these top 10 lists and number 1 is so obvious, but there was just no way. It had to be Super Mario Brothers. So again, there you go. So if you look at these in tiers, to me, Super Mario Brothers sits alone at S tier. There is no more important launch title in the history of gaming than Super Mario Brothers. At the A tier, number 2, Halo Combat Evolved, number 3, Wii Sports, number 4, Breath of the Wild, and number 5, Tetris for the Game Boy. Those 4 games sold consoles, and in the case of both Nintendo and Xbox, at various times, some of those games saved those brands. That's why they're alone in the A tier. Those 4 games are so insanely vital to the success of the consoles that they're on. Number 6, alone in the B tier is Mario 64. I know some of you that love Mario 64 are going to be upset it's that low, but we're not just ranking them based on how much you liked it and how good it is. Mario 64 just wasn't as important to the Nintendo brand as Tetris on the Game Boy, Breath of the Wild on the Switch, Wii Sports on the Wii, or Super Mario Bros. On the NES, or Halo to Xbox. It just wasn't. It's a great game, but Nintendo 64 would have been okay without it. Those other systems, I don't think they would have been. So that's why Mario 64 sits alone at number 6 on the B tier. And then number 7, Sonic Adventure for the Dreamcast. Number 8, Super Mario World. Number 9, Soul Calibur on the Dreamcast. And number 10, Astro's Playroom. Y'all know how much I love Super Mario World. The Super Nintendo, dude, if you weren't there for NES Mania, you don't get how safe the Super Nintendo was. It was the safest bet in the history of gaming. That they could have released the Super Nintendo with nothing but, like, I don't know, a fucking developer's kit, and people would have bought it up. It would have sold like crazy. So I love Super Mario World, but it didn't have the impact those games in front of it did. Sonic Adventure and Soul Calibur, I think, are the 2 best games in the incredible launch library of the Dreamcast, and the only reason I didn't rank it higher is because sadly the Dreamcast did die. So they can't be considered that great. It's like when you're the best player in the league, but your team doesn't make the playoffs. In my opinion, you can't be MVP. And that's what the Soul Calibur and Sonic Adventure are. Two of the greatest players in the league, but the Dreamcast missed the playoffs, so I can't put them that high. And the Nationals Playroom, to me, is just a great launch title altogether. So there you go. I know it's kind of a controversial list, but I tried my best to put my personal bias aside and take all those factors in together. And I got to be honest, I'm proud of that list. I think that list makes a lot of sense. I think my reasoning makes sense. If you want to argue with me, I'd love to see it. Leave it in the comments on Patreon or whatever, and I'd like to see them. And yeah, we're done. We're going to wrap this thing up and go the fuck home. I'll be back tomorrow with Game Patch. We'll review that phenomenal Nintendo Direct and talk about whatever else is happening in the world of gaming this week. And then we'll be back tomorrow with a whole nother slab of podcasts. Take it easy, everybody. Thank you for the support. Thank you for listening to me. And talk to you on the next one. Cheers, so long, goodbye. Thanks again for listening. Head over to patreon.com/rememberthegame to see what all's waiting for you in our bonus podcast archives. You can view them on Spotify as well. Our subscriptions start at $3 a month. We'll offer annual subscriptions that'll save you your 12 months fees. 5% of our income over there is donated to Extra Life for the Stollery Children's Hospital here in Edmonton, and all the shows are ad-free. Hundreds of bonus podcasts, access to our Discord. You can write into the show. You can help pick the games we play and cover, and so much more. Patreon.com/rememberthegame. Thanks again. Cheers. Whatever you want. We'll be back next week with Remember the Game 299, Twisted Metal Black. Fuck, that game's awesome. Take it easy, everybody. Cheers.